all have emotional baggage of some kind. Someone else's usually seems more obvious than our own. Problem is, we carry our emotional baggage into the workplace. Visualize this. Everyone walking around carrying an actual bag on the shoulder. Depending on how large that bag is, it starts with, well, by colliding with other people's bags. Although we're symbolizing in a real-life scenario, it's no less chaotic. We'll be discussing emotional baggage in the workplace. Over the next hour, our guest is Dr. Grant Mullen, a mental health physician, author, and seminar leader. He has treated difficult-to-treat mood disorder patients. His latest book is called The Breakthrough Solution. It deals with how the workplace is affected by people carrying around emotional baggage. If you, the viewer, if you have any questions, don't hesitate. Give us a call at any time. Dr. Mullen, great to have you back with us.
Nice to be back.
Now, the times that you've been on with us before, we dealt with emotional issues, mood disorders. You've written this latest book showing how that transcends the person and goes with people into the workplace.
Yeah, I spent my whole career treating individuals and families, so a family system, and so I could see how mood disorders, problems of the past, difficult emotions interfere with the family system. But then the more I treated them, and I had a eureka moment when I realized that people were taking all those issues to work, and it was ruining the workplace. Not only was it destroying or disrupting their own personal career, it disrupted everyone around them. And so I could see that not only was I treating a family system, I was treating a work system too, even though I was just treating one person. So I realized that all the problems I was treating at home were also taking place at work. And then I saw that corporations, because there's so many people there, are just one larger dysfunctional family. So everything that's true of families at home is true of corporations, but on a much grander scale.
Now, your book highlights this. It uses the story of Bill Spencer, and he's a corporate troubleshooter. The book, in a sense, is meant to be funny, and it is. It's really funny.
It's a comedy.
It's a comedy, but it's so incredibly realistic.
Well, it's a very short comedy, actually. It's only 100 pages. You can read it in an hour and a half. And so what I've done is I've taken a really heavy topic, but we've made it into a comedy story. So it's a story of a very dysfunctional workplace. So
toxic, they call it.
The toxic workplace.
Yes.
So we've exaggerated all these problems. But what makes this company unique is the baggage that people bring to work is actually visible. And so the book is illustrated. There are actually cartoons in it of people dragging their bags into the office or getting caught in the revolving door at the front of the building, and they're always colliding. And so it's to show how baggage interferes with their functioning at work. And so the whole company is falling apart because they have all these dysfunctional people.
Now, this is a concept I've been seeing highlighted in the media, believe it or not, in certain articles that cover mental health in the workplace, that some workplaces recognize it and they do the best they can in assisting the employees, and frankly others don't. I'd like to hear, you have some statistical information here, and I'd like to hear an overview of what that might be before we move on.
Well, these are very shocking statistics. We know that 10% of the population in general has a mood disorder, 80% are undiagnosed. And those are, I think, small conservative estimates. But in the workforce, amongst employed people, it's 6%. So 10%, of course, includes all the people who are home disabled. But 6% of the working people are actually disabled to some degree with a mood disorder. But they're at work. And we also know that people who are working with a mood disorder, even though they're present at work, the statistics show that they are absent 2.3 days a month, even while they're sitting at their desk. What that means is that they are so distracted by their depression, anxiety, or just personal turmoil that they're not focusing on their job. So they're actually present but absent. So there's actually a new term for that in the human resources community called presenteeism, for people who are at work but they're not concentrating. And so we also know that 14% of the annual corporate profits in Canada are lost because of all of the mental health problems of the workers.
Grant, we live in a very driven society, one that lacks patience. In fact, very bottom line driven, the corporate world. Now, interestingly enough, your book highlights a corporation trying to survive, if I may say so, barely able to survive.
Yeah, they're
because it's a toxic, exactly.
It's a failing corporation.
Exactly.
Until the hero rescues them.
Right. That's right. Can you give us some examples of how this emotional baggage can contribute to the toxicity of a particular workplace?
Yeah, it's actually, once you start talking about it, everyone can come up with an example.
And it's from the top on down, isn't it? First of all, let's start there.
In fact, the more dysfunctional the leader, the more dysfunctional the corporation, because the people underneath are going to be a reflection of the dysfunctional leaders. So, of course, what I'm pleading with corporations, and I'm trying to teach corporations this, is that the higher up the leader is, the more he needs to pay attention to his mental health. So you can have a good leader but have toxic employees, and so that will disrupt the corporation. But of course, in the story I gave, the CEO is probably the most odd person in the whole corporation, because he believes that the best corporation should be like an ATM, no humans.
Wow.
It just needs servicing, and you just fill it up with money and put in your card. No humans. So the higher up the dysfunction, the more it ripples down to everyone who reports to them. So it's a huge problem. But just some very simple illustrations is a person who's depressed or anxious at work isn't concentrating. That's the first thing that goes in a mood disorder, is concentration. So they can't shut their mind off, so their productivity is going to drop just because they can't focus on their task. But then apart from that, they're going to be either unhappy or tired all the time, and poor relationships. So not only do they not really get their work done because they're not concentrating, but because of their own emotional state, they drag down the people around them.
Yes. Now, Dr. Mullen, if there's one thing I want our audience to understand and come to terms with, I mentioned in the introduction how it's very easy to look around and see everybody else's baggage in the workplace, because the first thing you might say is, oh yeah, that boss that I work with, or this person, that's a perfect example of it. But we all contribute to our workplace. You mentioned the point about anxiety and depression and how it can be manifested in the workplace. Do you see a direct connection with people who perhaps suffer with anxiety problems on their own and depression problems, and in the workplace you see this also manifested, perhaps even intensified by perhaps a bully of a boss?
Yeah, or just the stress of the workplace. I mean, if you're just at home, you can be depressed and anxious. But then if you're at work and there's time demands and there's relationship demands and meetings you have to go to and things you must concentrate on, it magnifies the symptoms dramatically. And then if you have a difficult boss or difficult goals for sales or pressure on you, of course it magnifies the issue. And then if you're not coping well, you'll become prickly. And that will be very difficult for the people around you. So yeah, the workplace can magnify these issues. And even amongst the people who don't have a diagnosed chemical imbalance mood disorder, just the people who have emotional baggage from their past. So for example, a person who's had a very difficult past and they were always put down and they were never affirmed and no one ever gave them confidence, then in the workplace, even if they have a clear mind without depression, they're not going to perform well.